Well, welcome everyone. I would like to call this meeting of the County of Haliburton Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee to order. I will do our land acknowledgement, and then I'll flip the order a little bit and have introductions done at that time. We respectfully acknowledge that the County of Haliburton is located on Treaty 20 Michi-Saugig territory and the traditional territory of the Michi-Saugig and Chippewa nations. We acknowledge a shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original Indigenous inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. Okay, thank you. So I would like to just take a bit of an opportunity to talk about the Accessibility Advisory Committee, our role, what we've done in the past, and maybe look to the future and talk about the things I really feel that we need to do better than we've done before. So I would first of all like to welcome everyone. I should say too, for those who just walked in, I'm going to be asking everybody to take a couple minutes to talk about yourself and why you were interested in sitting on this committee. So you can prepare for that. But we have an obligation to review site plans for multi-use residential and/or large-scale developments. We are responsible for promoting making our community more accessible and doing a lot of things that way. We look at public spaces and playgrounds. We'll see one today. We'll talk about that. But we also any other public building renovations that are going to be done. Even as a county, we'll be doing some significant renovations to the building next door. So those are things that you'll be involved in reviewing. And so I would say that over the last 8 years, we've done the bare minimum. We haven't been as effective as we could have been or should have been. Each of our local municipalities has been good to identify areas or facilities or parts of their programming that they need to make more accessible. They've provided that. We've created a multi-year accessibility plan. But I think there's much more we could have done and could be doing in terms of public education, even providing training for people in the community or even committee members. And we haven't been doing a lot of that work. So we really want to do much more of that in the next 4 years over the term of your appointment. So we'll be looking to you to see areas where you're interested in and where you see yourself plugging in to make a difference in those areas. We typically have 4 members of county council, one from each of the local municipalities. And so they tend to be the deputy mayors, and that's what we have this time, all 4 deputy mayors. Traditionally, we have had a chair and a vice chair. They tend to be the elected representatives around the table, just because it's easier for us as staff to communicate. We have regular communication protocols set up with them. So we've traditionally done the chair and the vice chair as members of council. But again, that will be your choice in just a minute. Does that help everybody? I think we've had a lot of those conversations as we interviewed. We talked a little bit about the vision. You shared a little bit with the hiring committee about your vision for your involvement. So if that's okay as a start, unless anyone has any questions, we'll move right to the appointment of a chair and a vice chair. Any questions? I expect Andrea to give me a tough time here. Okay, so with that, we've done this quite informally in the past. Is there anyone who is interested in putting their name forward to sit as the chair or the vice chair, or recommend someone? Jen? Does anyone want to fight her for it? No. Okay, so Councillor Dayu, could I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Schell and Councillor Ryle. Moved by Councillor Schell, seconded by Councillor Ryle. Be it resolved that Councillor Jen Dayu be appointed as chairperson of the Haliburton County Joint Accessibility Committee for 2023. All in favor? I never say this before that is done, but it doesn't come with any extra money. So, we would do the same thing for the vice chair as well. Would anyone like to put their name forward or have put someone else's name forward?
I don't want to be just chair.
Councillor Shell. Okay. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Ryle, Councillor McKechnie. Moved by Councillor Ryle, seconded by Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that Councillor Lisa Shell be appointed as vice chairperson of the Haliburton County Joint Accessibility Committee for 2023. All in favor? Okay. This is the point where I turn the meeting over to our new chair.
Really great to see you here and finally get started for this term. My apologies for not having my mic on. Thanks very much for coming. It's great to see you and to get kickstarted for this term. So it's a joy to be here with you. If we could go around the room and just introduce ourselves briefly, your name, where you live, and a little bit about your interest in the committee or your experience that brought you here, that'd be wonderful. Should we start over here?
So I'm Lisa Shell. I'm the deputy mayor for the township of Minden Hills, and I sit at the county representing Minden Hills. And all of us deputy mayors, I guess, just automatically get to sit here. So thank you all though for putting your names forward, because lately it's been difficult to find volunteers within the community. So it's nice to see that we had so many turnouts. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Walt McKechnie, and I'm also deputy mayor of the municipality of Dysart. And Mike makes us do this.
Yeah.
No, we're really happy to be here to help. I've been in this community a long time, and I'm always willing. I know when I put my name in for deputy mayor or any part of council, there's different committees, and you're appointed, and you have to represent your community in the best interest, and that's what I'm here to do. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kathy Hughes. I am a longtime cottager up here, but I moved up to Minden 2 years ago permanently. So I wear cottager hat, plus I live in town. Prior to retiring, I worked in student services, special education at consultant principal, coordinator level. So I have an in-depth background in terms of working with all multiple exceptionalities. And when living in Markham, I served on the accessibility committee for the city of Markham.
Hi, my name's Ashley Mann, and I was born and raised in Minden, but currently live in Haliburton now, so still in the county. I have 2 children, both boys, and I work in the medical field. So I did a lot of training and a lot of like route oriented and I guess a lot of that with the health, and also like a lot of training in different aspects with like policies, procedures and things. So I just felt like that would kind of help on this committee as well. So that was one of my interests when I seen it. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. That's great. And maybe we could go to Zoom next. Is it's Ben,
Okay.
I think I'm saying. Ben, hello. Can you give us an introduction about yourself, please?
All right. Hello, my name is Benin Dykstra. I'm from Haliburton. I've lived up here about 7 years now. And I think as someone who has cerebral palsy, I believe that I could offer some valuable insight as to how to possibly improve accessibility in the county as someone with cerebral palsy. And I've never done this type of work before. So if I get a little confused at times, just chop that up to being a bit naive.
Thanks very much, Ben. That's great. And
Hello, my name's Dr. Anne Jackson, and I have a PhD in critical disability studies and a master's in inclusive design, and I've been in the community for many, many years, the disability community. And my career was in information technology, but I more recently was an IT accessibility consultant for about 15 years. We moved here 2 years ago to Tory Hill. I'm super happy to be here. Everyone's so nice and kind. And I still teach part-time at Seneca and York in disability subjects. So policies and, you know, all really every aspect, build community, but it's more the spirit. Inclusive design is a way of life. It's not just a degree or anything like that. So you can't be in the disability community and not be touched by it. And also, so many of us are getting older that we need good disability. I'm very happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Cease Ryle. I'm the Deputy Mayor of Highlands East, sitting on County Council. I was the former chair of the Accessibility Committee. And I got to say, Mike summed it up very, very well when he indicated what we should be doing and what we will be doing over the next 4-year term. And if we're all on board for that, I think we're going to have a great time, and welcome to all of you.
And I'm Jennifer Dayu. I'm the Deputy Mayor of Algonquin Highlands Township. And in a former life, before coming to the county, I was a humanitarian, spent 20 years in war zones and post-war zones around the world, working hard on women's rights and children's rights in war-impacted countries. So while it does not touch upon accessibility directly, there is a sentiment behind there, making sure that everyone is included in all processes of society. So that's the piece that I hope to bring today and moving ahead. All right, great, thank you. Have I missed, I haven't missed anyone. Would you want to, no?
I can introduce the staff in the room.
Okay, great.
So in the comfortable, oh, she's not in her comfortable chair, is Andrea Robinson, our Director of Corporate Services. Andrea probably won't be supporting this committee in the long term, but she helped with in the past. And so I wanted to make sure she was here as in case there were questions about what we had done in the past, she would be able to fill in those gaps. She was supposed to be taking her daughter to get her license today. Were you able to do that, or? Very good. Very good. So careful driving home. And in the corner is Michelle Moore, our deputy clerk, who does support this committee and will be on an ongoing basis. So you'll be getting, if you have any questions about your agenda, any questions about process or scheduling, anything like that, Michelle is your person. So you'll find her really helpful, I know. So that's the staff support at this point.
Great. Do you need a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda and all those?
Yes, I do.
May I please have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda? And Wolf, great.
Moved by Member Jackson, seconded by Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that the April 12th, 2023 Haliburton County Joint Accessibility Committee agenda be approved.
All in favor? Great, thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? And by that, I mean, will anyone's treasures rise or fall on the basis of the conversation and any decisions that we would make here today? No. Seeing none. May I have a mover and seconder for the acceptance of the previous minutes? Cease and Councillor Shell, please.
Moved by Councillor Ryle, seconded by Councillor Shell. Be it resolved that the minutes of the June 22nd, 2022 meeting of Haliburton County Joint Accessibility Committee be adopted as circulated.
All in favor? Wonderful. So for points 8 and 9.
I think I'll save my comments for the multi-year accessibility plan that later on the agenda, if that's okay.
Okay. With regards to correspondence, then any notes on that?
We really just wanted to provide this as information, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario has provided or put in a submission on the review of the Ontarians with Disabilities Act. We just wanted to make sure you were aware of it. If there's anything in particular that you believe they are missing the target on, we can do our best to forward those comments to the ministry, but we just wanted to make sure that you were aware of AMO's position.
Any thoughts or comments?
I thought it was nicely done. I thought your answers were very sort of human and very practical. You know, you need money to get these things done and things like that. I just thought it was nicely answered.
Anything else? Nope. Do you need a?
We
thing
don't.
on that?
No.
All right, great. For point 11, public awareness and education.
Again, I think I'll maybe talk about that later on in the agenda, if that's okay.
Okay. Then on point 12, new business, the Dysart Accessible Playground Review. I'd like to introduce Andrea, who is here to discuss this with us. Can I leave it to you, Andrea, to take it away, or is there someone else who, do you want to do an introduction to that first? How would you like to do this?
I don't think I need to do an introduction, although I will. So Andrea Mueller is the manager of programs and events for the municipality of Dysart et al. She has been working for about over a year now, I think, on this playground proposal, and you all have seen it in your agenda. I don't think I had forwarded them for you to. Okay, that might be good, Mark. Sorry, I didn't. So Andrea is going to, I know that it has been reviewed and designed with accessibility in mind. She'll point some of those things out. In the past, our members, we're not always trained in accessible design, although some are. So we've looked at it from a practical standpoint. Some of our members have had disabilities, and they've said, we need to make sure that parking is in the right place, or that the right number of parking spaces are there. Things that aren't necessarily covered in the design guidelines that may affect people's ability to enjoy or to use the facility. So feel free, Andrea will work us through them. But feel free to ask questions, anything that you think that would make it more easier to use or more accessible to those with disabilities. That's what we're here to talk about. So.
And to that point, actually, Ben, I see you in a box on the screen, and I'm worried that if you raise your hand, I may not see it. So if you wouldn't mind just shouting out if you have a question or a comment, please go right ahead.
Okay, no problem.
All right, Andrea. So as Mike said, we've been working on this for quite a while. We have a committee that was established and looked at a whole bunch of different options. We started with a couple of designs that were presented. One that was through the Ontario Trillium Foundation for a grant that we had, and the goal of that grant was to have accessible features. Over time, our wording has shifted more from accessible to inclusive, because inclusive is the way recreation and those sort of things are moving forward. That's the term. The drawings don't do everything justice, obviously. There's things that are, they put this there. It doesn't show our park per se. It shows the equipment that we're looking at, but it doesn't show the pathways leading up to it or some of the other features that are already existing that are there. So, and it's hard to see from everything that's there what the different components are. When you look at the just for lack of better terms, the prefab structure that's on the thing with the green slides and the all of that, that has there is a ramp going up to that. That ramp is going to meet up with one of our paved pathways. If it can't meet with our paved pathway, we're going to have crushed fines going up to that ramp. So it doesn't depict it in the picture, obviously. So there is some ramping and some lower decking, and there's different things that we've taken into consideration when designing this or when working with the company to design this. There's parts that are tactile, that are, there's memory boards, there's different types of things that you can drive and steer.
Something you don't see in here are musical instruments. That's something that's, if we had hit our target of fundraising, we were going to incorporate musical instruments as well, but that's something that's not showing on this design. Things like the wobble boards, which are those hexagon shaped things, are considered, anybody can use them as if they can be transferred onto them. The spinners, there's 2 spinners. There's a larger one in the forefront of the picture that can fit quite a few people on it. Somebody could be transferred onto those, but people with all different, somebody in the middle can steer it, somebody can steer it from the outside. It's called a merry-go-all. We did look at the idea of having something completely flush with the ground that somebody could go onto. It's just given the type of surface treatment and everything. There's not a teeter-totter. There was a teeter-totter was high on people's wants, but we didn't want, like, the teeter-totters are kind of gone the way. So that is, I can't think of the quite terminology for it, but people can sit in chairs. They can be strapped in. People can sit on into the middle, bounce around, move around. It's a rock-sol, it's called. It goes in all different directions. We have shade in there. You don't see it on this, but there are swings existing in the park. We have swings that have your standard swing, toddler swings, a Jenny swing. Those are all remaining. They'd be part of this design, but just it will be more of an L-shaped playground. We have communication. We're working to get communication boards on the Rotary Beach side of the park, and with that same company, they're going to design communication boards that have a Highlands twist to them instead of just being your standard what you see in schools and stuff. We wanted to have a bit of a flair of what you see in the Haliburton Highlands. So a local company who actually has some equipment in the park that they've donated to us is working with us to create the communication boards. And if Tamara had said, if I'm not mistaken, that the accessibility committee had had a certain amount of money for each municipality for a communication board. So we were hoping that we could use that in this area on this side of the park. So that's something we plan to have on our pathways around, some marks painted too, like just for the literacy elements and for other elements. So it's not just equipment, but there's other forms of play that can take place. Again, the committee identified like shade and seating and things like that that are important, as you don't see them in the design. And so if you're coming as a caregiver, if a child just wants a quiet place to play, those are elements that we will be incorporating into the design as well. And then something else that was talked about too was a sand feature where people can play, build a little table where there can be some play with sand. Because obviously this is probably the one where we've talked a lot about at length is the type of surfacing. So this is the engineered wood fiber, which if you look at the standards for playgrounds, there's 3 types of surfacing which are considered accessible. And for fall, if you fall from like the top of the tower and you land down, what's best for the impact absorption. So I know that engineered wood fiber out of the 3 is the least accessible, but when you look at cost, it's $3.50 a square foot. The rubberized surface is $26 a square foot. So there's a huge, and we have asked for some quotes just to see how much it would be to put a rubberized surface even around part of it. I don't have those numbers yet. The other thing with the rubber surface is it's the replacement time. Like an engineered wood fiber, you can add more to it, but the replacement surface of the rubber is approximately 10 years. And then you're looking at, you have something, yeah.
I just had a question, is how is it for wheelchairs? And
So
strollers? Is it
engineered-
good? Because you'd think maybe it would be a little iffy.
Engineered wood fiber, no, is not the best. They say it's accessible, like you look at the documents and everything, but I will say it's not the greatest. It's depends, I guess, on the type of chair. It depends on the type of wheels and everything. It's out of the 3, it's the least accessible, but when it comes to cost and replacement, and then in terms of the fall rating, it's the best in that sense. So there's pros and cons to no matter what you go with. We have asked, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar, at Rotary Beach, we have a blue Moby mat. So people can get from the pathway right to the water on this. And they have them like at Wasaga Beach and at Sandbanks and different places. We have asked if we could have those in strategic spots back from the pathway going up to a certain piece of equipment so that maybe somebody really wants to go over by the logs. We don't have an answer yet whether or not we can, or how far we can extend that. So that's something just waiting to hear back on. Something else that came up, we were discussing it today. I was discussing it with our CAO and our Director of Parks and Rec. The grounds crew, or there's some desire to have a curbing or to have something around the exterior of the park. Right now, there's no curbing. It's just wood fibers, grass. But there's been some discussion, and we have to bring it to council and see what they think about even having a pathway that's maybe 3 feet wide, that's made of the crushed fines around the entire perimeter of the park. So then somebody can at least, one, it keeps the wood fibers from getting into the grass, hopefully, but two, it makes it just a little bit more. So if somebody wanted to go, over to the far side to watch people on the zip line, they can maneuver around easily without having to go all the way across the grass or go around to a different pathway. So that's something though that still has to come forward. But it was a discussion this morning. So I don't know what else, like questions or.
So I noticed that there's a lot of climbing based activities right here at this park. What is there something we could put in for individuals who, let's say, we just can't physically get out of our wheelchairs? Something we can do?
So we do have the lower elements which have the ramps, and I understand that's very primary, like it's not for the ideal for maybe a 12-year-old or a teenager or something. We did have discussion. It hasn't come to the full committee yet, but in the background you can see a disc swing. That is something that hasn't been, that can be or altered. And there was an ask to have maybe a swing with a platform that can be used as well. I do hear you with the climbing elements. The company we were working with had said with the log jams that those are like co-play. So some people use them on more of the ground level and some people will climb on them. We will be bringing in musical instruments. There are some, like this picture doesn't depict it very well, but there are 2 different levels of monkey bars, one at a chair height, like that somebody in a chair can use, and one higher up. And if you have some suggestions of things that we might want to consider.
Well, I mean, the only thing I was thinking of at the moment is if like somewhere you put in like a little tether ball, like those balls on the string.
Yeah, so though we had a tether ball in our park years ago, but it kept getting stolen. so that's one we won't do, but we do have, again, it's not depicted in these pictures, but we have some games that are off to the side. We have Who's Your Critter, we have tilt-a-boards, we have some different games that are already part of the park that will not be leaving. They're staying in place and staying put, but perhaps something, so tetherball, but maybe there's something else that won't walk away.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. And then we do have like on the other side of the park, I know it's not this playground, but on the other side of the park, there is there's pickleball courts and tennis courts and basketball, which can be used. But if you have other thoughts or suggestions, gladly we'd be open to hear them for sure.
Maybe like a small table with like a deck of cards or something.
Yeah, that's a good, okay. And we do have tables in the plans as well, just not.
Just not in the designs, yeah.
Yeah, just not on the design here, but tables, and we always bring in tables into the park that have the extension on the end. So we have picnic tables like that, but we've also have some round tables that have open spots. So somebody in a wheelchair or using a walker can just pull up and they don't have to transfer.
Are there other ideas on that? Cease, maybe you can first.
Yeah, I noticed that you called it a communication board rather than an information board. And I kind of like that. Does that address, well, it must be 3 or 4 years ago now, I can't remember, maybe you can remember, when somebody came in and talked to us about symbolic language that could be used for those people who have a difficult time communicating in general. Is this an application where something like that could be used on an information board? Or is it just not something that would fit?
So when we're talking communication board, we're actually talking about the type of board that you were just referring to. And Sue's probably the one who came and talked to you a few years ago, I would think. So yes, That's the type
So
of
that's
board.
part of it.
That's part of it.
Awesome.
Sue, do you want to introduce yourself quickly? We just talked about who we are, where we're from, and why we're here.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm coming from another meeting. My name is Sue Tiffin. I am the Community Safety Plan Wellbeing Coordinator for Haliburton County. I know some of you, so hello. And I'm also here sitting at the table, not just to look at accessibility and inclusion in the community through the plan, but also because I have a daughter who's disabled. So I did come to this committee a few years ago to speak to AAC boards, or alternative and augmentative communication boards. And I just wanted to say, Andrea, like I'm really happy with all of the work you've done. I know that you've sort of incorporated inclusion in your plans for a long time. So it's really great work that you're doing.
Do you have thoughts on the wheelchair accessible games that are not required for climbing, et cetera? Do you have thoughts on that, or is it a new? More the slides? Sure. But I just want to make sure we don't go too far past Ben's point in case there are other suggestions from Ben or around the table on wheelchair specific activities. Kathy?
I'm wondering if there would be a possibility for a section that could be like a tarmac or paved, and you could put one of the lower dunking basketballs. Because using the wood chips is good, but it is really hard to manage if you're pushing a wheelchair through that. And I understand fiscally where it's coming from. But if there was a small section that could be paved, then you could put a dunk basket and sand tables go to throw sand. I worked in a school. Sand tables left. They were a tough one to manage, but you want something that people can use their method of transportation to be part of everything.
Other thoughts on that, or I'm sure you've already done a lot of this homework, but where we might be able to source even more ideas to make sure that's covered, or Sue?
Hi, can I speak to that? So I just want to say that I didn't know this in my introduction, but my family is, we are playground professionals. So we actually travel throughout Ontario to use playgrounds. And I actually did show these plans to my kids. They're 10 and 8. There was a lot that they loved. And when I said, but what about the accessibility aspect? There was a lot that they questioned. So many of the, it looks like in these plans as presented, it looks like some of the equipment requires a lot of transferring. So that's not just difficult and presents sort of a barrier for kids who use wheelchairs, but also parents or other caregivers who use wheelchairs. And I know that some of the playgrounds that are highest on our list, we do have a list, but some of those playgrounds are the ones that are just the easiest for the kids and present a lot of options for parallel play as well. So, for example, at Headlake Park, the swing set that's there, the accessible swing is included alongside the other swings as well. That makes a big difference in terms of playing, because you don't want to say, oh, let's all play together. Your swing's over there, right? So this is really, really important. And I think it matters as well in terms of the wooden structure that you have, or sorry, it looks wooden. That's so cool, but it's definitely not accessible for a lot of kids. However, there's always an option to put something next to it that it allows for parallel play. So, we're going to climb on this. Maybe you can go alongside next to it, and we're still playing, even if we're not on the same equipment, it's still parallel play. And I think that speaks to the wood chips as well. There are a lot of opinions about wood chips throughout the province. They really are very, very difficult to access for people who use wheelchairs, and not just wheelchairs, but other mobility challenges. Even toddlers learning to walk with their, unbalanced gait, it can be challenging. So that is something to maybe consider. I know it's expensive. Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't as expensive as it is to have other surface, but it really does make the difference between we can play here or we can't. And this is inviting everyone and it's not. So I think it is something to consider. In terms of receiving other opinions from people too, I actually a few months ago was asked by somebody through the fundraising committee about some thoughts. And so I turned to, there are a lot of informal parent groups online and communities where disabled people can sort of speak up about what works and doesn't work for them. And so I did take an informal survey from some people there about what works, what do they like, what don't they like. And I do have a bunch of comments here that I'm happy to share with everybody from people who use playgrounds throughout the province, who travel like us to access them. So there's a lot of really good resources there. And there's also, I think you've probably seen it, the Holland Bloorview playbook. You have it there? Okay, great. So yeah, just a lot of different ideas there about what works best and making sure that if we're starting new, it's different if we have to change something once it's there, but if we're starting new, how can we make it the most accessible and then add to it as we need to?
That's incredible. I did not know that you were a playground professional. Here in Canada.
Just you are very welcome here. And you had some comments about the slides.
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments. Well, I got a few more comments too, but specifically about the slides. I noticed there's two things, but one thing is the slide comes down and then there's no sort of little transfer. So that if you're a wheelchair person, you've been transferred there, you've gone down your slide and then you have to wait for someone to get you off. So I've seen them where they have a little space on the side so you can move them up and then everyone else can use the slide. And my father had cochlear implants, so I'm really keen on this one. But the plastic slides create static, which interferes with the cochlear implant.
So, and that's actually one of the comments that we received from Sue. So one of the slides is a stainless steel roller slide. So the pictures, like I said, don't depict everything very well. So we've incorporated a stainless steel roller slide. There's a double slide that doesn't show up very well either. So sometimes people like to go down together to play. So there are a few, but the transfer, I can find out more about that because I don't think any of them have a transfer on the side. So I'll find out for sure.
And the other thing I noted was back support and grips on the swings. I couldn't see them very well, but I totally agree with you that it all has to be in the same. It's horrible to say to some child, go play over there where the rest of us play here. I mean, that's not very inclusive, but if there's a swing there that has like a back support or
so we do it's not in these pictures because they already exist in the park. So we have there's swing sets that face each other and one of them has a back support, like you can transfer someone into it. It's called a Jenny swing. It's a full, like an adult can sit in it. And then there's two swings beside it, and then across there's toddler swings and some other swings. So some have one has back support, the other two don't, and then the toddler swings are like those baskets that you sit in.
And what about service dogs?
We don't have anything in place. Like we have a water, if they need a drink, we have water over at the Welcome Center, but we don't have, like, I don't.
So somewhere for them to sit and the dogs like to see if they have a charge, this is my person I have to look after. They like to be able to see them. Otherwise they get very, very stressed. I mean, that's their whole purpose, right? So it was just, do they have a good line of sight to be able to see their charges? Do they have somewhere to sit? Do they have, not the dog sitting, but person with the dog or whatever, if they have to stay with them and shave?
Those are all things that, like I said, weren't in this. They are identified for sure by our committee, and this is just what was provided from the company, but benches, shade, those are all things that have been identified by the committee that need to be a part of this whole playground, because it's great to go to a playground, but if you can't sit and take a break, or if you can't watch, and like maybe you don't want to be playing, but you want to just observe, you need those spaces to do that. And that's definitely been identified. And that was something that was like hit a certain target for equipment and then surpass that target for all the amenities, I guess is the best word to say.
I may say it looks lovely. You really put a lot of thought into it, and it's wonderful to see it.
It's a group,
Thank
it's a
you.
group effort.
Thank you.
Maybe we could put a sign up there for anyone who might have a service dog. Maybe like an image that says, "Don't pet me, I'm working."
Yeah.
Because I mean, kids don't understand that kind of a thing.
No.
So
Cease, your thoughts?
You were talking about swings, and I want to show my age because back in the day, we had a thing called a treadle swing. I don't know if you remember what, or you may not remember what they are, but the kind of, you just sit in them. You could sit, there's two benches,
And you've,
and you just rock back and forth.
so when I was talking.
They call
about-
that, we used to call it a treadle swing. I have no idea what the common term was for it,
So when I was talking.
but it's good for older people too.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And that's when I was talking about a platform swing. So in the one image, you see a disc swing. And like I said, that hasn't been, the disc swing is something that can maybe change in the plan. We had talked about having some sort of swing that you could, like I called it a platform swing, but maybe it's a treadle swing. Something that you could come up to and face each other and swing in together. So that's something that's come about. We just have to go through the whole discussion. We have our next meeting at the end of April. So I'll be bringing forward these to that meeting.
Yeah, well,
I'm not here because it's just my opinion. I'm representing Dysart Council. But, excuse me, but seems to me that I sit in on this meeting here in the last half hour or so, learned a lot about, something that we don't even think about. I'm not saying that we didn't think about accessibility in putting this park together. But I mean, in the half an hour, we brought up a lot of issues. I can imagine if we spend another half hour here discussing it, we come up with another long list. But one of the things that was discussed, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrea. It was $26 a foot, and there's roughly 4,000 square feet. So it's roughly $25,000 for 1,000 square feet of the safer and better accessibility for people pushing wheelchairs or little kids running around. I think that's something that I will discuss to the council about. I mean, we spend a lot of money on a lot of things, taxpayers' money. And if we can't find another 50,000, even if we just did the first year, just to see how it works, think where to be the best suited for the kids. That's what we're worried about, are the kids falling. And we spent $50,000 more. I mean, if we can't find $50,000 for our kids, and especially the ones that are unfortunate, then that, to me, that's wrong. So I'll be definitely speaking up in regard to that issue, because I think the chips are a great thing, but they're not really. I mean, we're trying to take a cheap way out, and we're dealing with our youth, our little toddlers and people who are handicapped. And I think we should be spending the money. And like I say, I can go on and on. I'll shut up here in a second, but we spend a lot of money on a lot of things, and this is something we should be spending some more money on. The floor.
It's also
Thank
really
you.
nice for sort of wayfinding too, right?
Yeah,
Because
make
you
some
can have them in
paths.
different colors and
Yeah.
it looks nice and then, right?
Make sure they can go over and watch their brother on the swing or on the wooden. Just being close to them is enough. The acknowledgement, the eye contact, right?
thank you, Walt. Thank you very much. Sue, you had some more thoughts.
I do. I apologize. I don't know if we have already talked about the zip line. So there is, again, an accessible zip line option, which would likely cost more, I'm guessing. But there is one at Kate's Place in Elmira. My friend Kelly designed and spearheaded that playground, and it's a great one. And what's wonderful about it is that it's, I think there are both options. So there's the option that is in the plans, which is one that we really, really love elsewhere in the county. I won't note the name because we like that it's our secret, beautiful place. But
Just for the record, there's only one out of one in the county. So Algonquin Highlands go you.
now it's going to be packed. Anyway, the great thing about the Elmira playground is that there's both options and they're right beside each other. And I can definitely speak from experience that it has been great for our both of our kids and also their grandparents who was gently coerced to try it. So the great thing is that it's available for, and I know that you've long championed kid play as well as adult play. So and again, I know there would be an extra cost, but just noting that there is an accessible option.
Yeah, please.
So in our original plans, we actually had a zip track and a zip line. But then when the plans first went forward, there was originally going to be wooden towers, but those we found out were like $300,000 for one. And so, yes, I know. And so it was compromised, what can be done, so the log jam was put in, the zip track was taken out. There was a thought that if there was a desire from the community and from council down the road, one zip track is 46, we were quoted $46,000. So it was it was a long, we had a really lengthy discussion about that, but it's something that's not, I guess, completely thrown out the window. It just all comes down to funding and space as well. Like we had to keep within a certain footprint for the playground too, because it's Head Lake Park, not just Head Lake Playground. So we were trying to work with the space that we had and what elements, but believe me, we had a zip track in there. The original plans all had a zip track, but it ended up kind of, but I hear you, because we were trying to look at co-play as much in parallel play as much as possible.
So do you have other points from your list of experience?
From this lengthy list. I think that's it. And I think I know Andrea is on top of this already. But I think there's the mention of sensory walks, chargers for iPads. So some augmentative and alternative communication requires charging. And it runs out at the least opportune moments generally. Water stations, of course. I know there's an accessible washroom in the area. I don't know if there's an adult changing table. There is. Okay, great. Because those are hard to find. And again, another point of contention throughout the province. Even at some children's hospitals, they're quite difficult to find. And then just the idea that, of course, we can sit here and offer our experiences as much as we want. And I would love to see some of the Dysart counselors have a chance to try that zip line to see if it might make a fit. Maybe we could do a playground tour. Counselor McKechnie, if you're game. But I do know that in the end, children know best. And so maybe having a variety of kids, if you haven't, disabled kids and some of their non-disabled friends, disabled caregivers, just join the committee or join as a youth advisory committee. And if you haven't already, I would just recommend speaking with somebody through maybe 5 counties, the OTPT team. They really, really know their stuff. And I've definitely visited playgrounds with them before. And so they know what's throughout the province. And also they know some of the kids and adults in the communities who might be making use of that equipment. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask a little bit more about the actual platforms where the slides are and everything. It looks kind of like small to me, but again, it could be the photos as well. But just in consideration, because a lot of small children or children that would need the extra support for those slides, I just find a lot of playgrounds, they're really small up top and really hard to move around. And especially if there's 10 other children there, you can't really tell all the children to stop what they're doing to let you organize yourself and get down the slide with the child. So just maybe even seeing how big they are and maybe incorporating the platform itself a little bit bigger for that accessibility part. Yeah, because it just kind of, like I said, just from the photos, it just looks really small, but I don't know how big it actually is.
I don't really know the full dimensions. I might have a better image. Just some of them show more space, especially the lower platform. It's a bigger, this upper one looks narrower.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have, it's hard to say. I don't know if I have, sorry, I can't see. Okay. It looks like if the math is right here, it's showing 10, 10, 10, 6, 6, 8. Like it looks like it's 40 or 50 feet, but it's a hexagon shape.
Oh, okay.
So that's showing the flat part on the outside. So I don't know if that's what it shows on the drawing. So that to me would be fairly
Yeah, fairly large.
fairly large. So yeah, but it's a good point for sure. And
Well,
there's two platforms that are lower. It's again, the pictures didn't show that very well either. There's two lower platforms and then one that you have to climb to, but
Oh, sorry.
No, please.
And with this, the swing, is that it, when you're talking about the platform swing, is that something that you can incorporate like their chair into? Like, is there a way to?
that's what we're going to look at. to
Okay.
See, yeah, because there are some where you can, for sure.
Okay.
There's different models. so
Rather than
it's-
having,
So it's the thought was instead of a basket swing, see what else can be put there in place. Yeah.
Well, if there are no further thoughts, I might pass over to Mike. You've got some points for a resolution
Yeah, so
or a motion.
again, our role is not to make a decision in this. That's Dysart Council's decision and Dysart staff. Our role is to make recommendations to them. So what we try to do is develop a recommendation that we can send to Dysart for their consideration. And I know that they will take those things into account when they're doing their work and finalizing the design. I've tried to capture, but I don't know that I caught some of the terminology and if I got the terminology right. So if I didn't, please correct me because I don't do two things at once well. Be it resolved that the accessible playground documents submitted on behalf of municipality of Dysart et al. Be received, that the accessibility committee make the following recommendations. That you consider a base material that enhances accessibility, that you consider a section of more accessible base material with playground features that are easier for individuals to use in any transportation device. Is that what you consider placing elements where families can engage in parallel play? Consider installation of an accessible zip line. Consider installation of water stations, charging devices for AAC boards. And charging devices. Consider including a child with disabilities and/or support professional on design committee. And that's all I captured. It sounded like most of your suggestions actually were being considered anyway, so I didn't include those, but if I can, if you'd like.
The transfer station at the bottom.
And I noted too about the basketball or the mini hoops. Yeah.
And the basketball, I missed the terminology again. I did try to capture it in the second in any.
There are basketball hoops that are sort of a dunk basketball. It's from all levels around and they're lower so that little kids can use it. Anybody in a chair can use it. Anybody can use it.
And it's considered called a dunk basketball net.
There's we'll find it.
Okay. And so consider a transfer station at the bottom of slide. So does that capture all of the comments?
And I think you have more substantive notes. See you whittling away.
Yeah, I like to take notes. So
If you have any questions, just contact our playground professional. No.
Great. Could I have a mover and a seconder if there are no objections to that? Move to move and second Walt and thank you. Oh, and Ben, I'm sorry, I might use Ben just because I didn't get a chance to see his hand up before.
Excellent. You want me to read it again or is that?
I'm
okay?
sure we got it.
Okay.
Great. All in favor? Great. So our second and final substantive point of business is a discussion about where we've come so far with the accessibility plan and what the next steps are for a new plan.
So I I know that the members, the council members actually have another meeting to get to, so I know that you are time limited. So we put this on here. We wanted you to see what we had for a guiding document or a joint accessibility plan in the last term of council. Again, I was really excited when we interviewed all of you for the committee, because I really think you'll take us to the next level. Just because this is what we've done doesn't mean this is what we want to do next. We really do want to do better than we have done in the past. And so I wanted to show this just so that you can start putting your mind to what we should be doing next. We do need to have a multi-year accessibility plan. We'll be reaching out to our local municipalities in the next coming weeks, and we'll be asking them to submit a list of both programming and facilities that they're enhancing and that they're making accessibility improvements on or in. And so we'll be bringing that list back to you. But there are lots of ways we can make our community more accessible, whether it's the way we deliver services, whether it is by all means, look at our websites, look at the other ways we communicate. Are there ways we could be communicating more effectively? And so bring those ideas, and we will be having a session in the coming months where you really get to roll up your sleeves and tell us what we need to be doing next. So we put that there really as an information item, just as a starting point to talk and to start a conversation at a coming meeting. At our next meeting, what I just wanted to give a little, we will try to have a little more than the 1 hour. We maybe take a little more time than that. We're looking to source some material, some training materials on the role of the committee and role of individual committee members, so that you can get a little more comfortable with why you're here. Again, we'll look for your suggestions on our future planning and the work that we do in the future. We'll have a more substantial update on our communication board project. Andrea referenced it. I think we had been setting aside, I'm going to look at Andrea, $10,000 a year. Our goal was to have one park in each of a board in one park in each of our local municipalities, then extending that to our library. So a library branch in each of our local municipalities, and then potentially expanding that to the long-term care homes in our community and retirement homes in our community as well. So Sue, in a different role, encouraged us to do that, and we got really excited about it just before COVID, and so we haven't been able to deliver on any of that. Something about, we didn't want to encourage touching surfaces or during that time, but we really do want to get back on that. We'd like the committee to become more familiar with that. And then, of course, we're going to be bringing forward the plans from our local municipalities on work that they are proposing to do or programming they're proposing to do in the coming years. So we'll be bringing that information at the next meeting. So we just wanted to give a bit of a glimpse into what the next meeting will look like. So I hope that meets your expectation, but by all means, if it doesn't, talk to our chair or myself, and we'll make sure that it does.
Any questions on those plans? Wonderful. Do we need a motion with regards to that?
No.
No, okay. So just, I suppose we need to set our date for our next meeting. The proposed date is May 10th at that channel.
Typically, we would look to do it around 1 o'clock, as opposed to, we had the special council meeting this afternoon. Right. So typically we would try to do it at 1. I know some work, so if it doesn't work for your schedule, we can look to accommodate that in one way, shape, or form. But anyway, let us know, Ashley. I'm looking at you, Ashley, because I know. But if there's another time we could meet to make it better for you, then let us know. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But we're hoping for May 10th, we can obviously, we can accommodate if you want to meet virtually or you want to meet in person, we can do that. We've always found that it's beneficial to meet in person because often we have to gather around a table and look at plans or something like that that tend to not be easy to transfer electronically, but we can accommodate virtual participation without question.
Any other homework on your end before we adjourn?
No.
No, so we just need a motion to adjourn. Walt, thanks. Seconded by Cease.
Moved by Councillor McKechnie, seconded by Councillor Ryle. Be it resolved that the April 12th, 2023 meeting of Haliburton County Joint Accessibility Committee now adjourn.
All in favor? Great, and with impeccable timing, it is 2:30. Thank you, everybody.